Hello and welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Checkered Flag with Charlie and Kathleen Kimball. We are recapping the Long Beach Grand Prix. I spent all day Friday there, came home for Saturday.
Look at the cup I have.
Barber Vintage Museum. That's foreshadowing, right? That's the literary term for that.
I just realized that.
Yeah, well chosen. I spent all day Friday there, and then Kathleen and I spent all day yesterday, Sunday. April 13th for race day.
Yeah, it was so much fun.
It was great to see everyone. You got to check in with a lot of your friends, wives and girlfriends of, well, they're all wives now, I think, but wives and girlfriends of drivers.
Yep.
And it was a long day.
Yeah. I think my favorite moment was when, headed out to pit lane, we saw Will Power. And he came to give you a hug and came to give me a hug. But then I saw Liz was behind him. I was like, I don't care about you, Will. I just want to give Liz a big squeeze.
Well, and that's true. I think one of the things, and in fact, who was talking about this over the weekend? Oh, we were talking to one of our friends from IndyCar, and they had hosted the actor who rode in the fastest seat in sports. And I said, what did they think about it? And she was saying, he wants to come to the Indy 500 because the vibe in the paddock, the vibe in pit lane, the vibe in the media center is so family oriented. It's so tight knit.
Yeah. He said everyone just seems to really get along. And I think that is very true of IndyCar.
And it's not without tension. I think that's important to say. I mean, but also
every close relationship has tension.
Right. Exactly.
The other thing that I thought was cool, we had a friend with us who used to run the sponsorship for a Formula One team. And so he'd spent a lot of time in Formula One, and the access you get in IndyCar, if you get a credential, is unparalleled.
Right.
And I was like, okay, well, let's go out to pit lane and see what's going on for warm up. And he looks at me and he goes, wait, this is pit lane. And I said, yeah, we're standing there by a pit box. And they're going to do pit stops here. I said, yeah. He goes, no, not just practice pit stops. And I was like, no, this is where they'll do the pit stops for the race. And he was just so floored by that. And then, Scott Dixon comes and puts his scooter right next to us. And then Chip Ganassi comes and puts his scooter right next to us. And, it's just like the access you get in IndyCar is so cool.
And I think his comment was, I thought this was just where the spare wings, sort of out the back of the garage in the Formula One. And we'll just look through the catch fencing to pit lane. Yeah. And then it goes green, the cars fire up and launch. And he's like, wait, they're right there. Yeah. And I think it's one of the special elements. It's also one of the challenging elements at an event, especially like Long Beach. Okay, so a couple things, technical things. This is the first year of Penske Entertainment's ownership of the Long Beach Grand Prix.
Oh, I forgot about that.
It is also the 50th anniversary. 1975 was the first Grand Prix of Long Beach. They've had Formula One cars. They've had IndyCar races. I personally, and maybe I am biased, believe that the revitalization of that strip of Long Beach, that downtown piece, Ocean Boulevard, Shoreline, the Pike outlets, all the restaurants, the old Breakers retirement home is now a Fairmont hotel, and it's beautiful.
So beautiful. I love a good hotel.
You do love a good hotel while we travel.
I think next year, if we're going to stay down, if we're going to spend the whole weekend there, which we couldn't this year because we had a work commitment on Saturday, I think we stay there because I love.
Oh, try and book it now because it's beautiful.
Yeah.
But that revitalization is due to the 50 years of economic impact and annual events. Also, the Queen Mary, there's a lot of other things, but the fact that the city supports it so much. And I think some people don't often associate Long Beach with sports, but you've got 50 years of the Long Beach Grand Prix and also one of the greatest tennis players of all time to change society.
At least women's sports.
And women's sports, yeah. You walk past the Billie Jean King main library.
Yeah.
She played at Long Beach Poly and then went on to win majors and change the world. just small things out of
Title
Long
IX.
Beach. Yeah, and Title IX. And her brother, growing up in Long Beach, was a Major League Baseball pitcher as well, Randy.
Hmm.
And so, excuse me, I've got a little bit of a frog in the throat. My kids, spring break.
Oh yeah, our kids are here. It's spring break. We don't have childcare until noon, so I guarantee our kids will come interrupt us at some point. Apologies in advance.
And that's fine. That's part of life and part of spring break. But they gave me a cold, and I'm on my way over it and talking over loud race cars all day yesterday, talking to a lot of people. There were so many. Even on Friday, I said, okay, this is a great thing, but there are so many people here.
There were so many people there. The attendance, I'm excited to see the attendance numbers because it's going to be high.
And that's what I was going to finish my thought on the 50th anniversary is Jim Mulcahy, the CEO, great guy. A racer himself, drives. I remember when I was driving a Formula Ford at Buttonwillow, he'd bring his Formula Continental up and drive. He was quoted as saying they don't have walk-up numbers yet, but they fully expect to exceed the 49th runnings record attendance number of 194,000 fans. So,
Mommy, you're gonna push me off our bed.
Okay, well, remember we're filming the podcast now, buddy, so you need to take care of it on your...
Hi? Okay, Gordy. Okay. This is our son, Gordon. He's come in because his older sister pushed him off the bed. Yeah. Do you want to go back and watch some TV, please? Okay. Take your iPad into the living room. Thanks, buddy. He's also wearing a Dodgers blanket as a cape. You guys couldn't see that on camera, but I'm going to paint the picture. It is footy pajamas.
Yep.
Superhero spring break right here.
Yeah. The other thing we forgot to mention is I wish you guys had smell-o-vision. So we are on 2 acres in ag land in California, and we have a mixture of oranges and avocado trees, and the orange trees are blossoming right now. And so our whole house smells of orange blossom, which is my favorite scent in the world. And I just want to sit outside. All the windows are open, everything, so that we can just like smell.
And we got home from the race last night. And our friend who came with us is British. We got out of the car and he just took a deep breath and went, oh my God, it smells so good.
Yeah.
and I do that. I find myself doing that every time I get home in the evening or midday from out running errands or something from the office. I just stop and take a big deep breath and try and pull that orange blossom scent in.
Well, we're a little scatterbrained today.
So race weekend.
Yes. Race weekend. So we talked about the crowd. In practice, Dixie had a very like un-Dixie-ish shunt.
Yeah, Scott Dixon heading into turn 6, the left-hander where you come back up onto Pine, kind of around the outlets. Just before that braking zone, that grandstand 6 area is when I was driving and we had a lot of friends and family that would come down from Ventura County. We'd put our 30, 40, 50, sometimes 75 guests in that grandstand because it is such a great place to watch because you get to see the cars twice. You get to see the big braking, pit out from turn 1, disappearing into the Dolphin Fountain section of turn 2 and 3. But also you get to see the braking zone into turn 6, turn the left. If you turn your head to your left, you can see them climb up the hill. And there is a shocking amount of elevation change at the Long Beach Grand Prix for a street circuit. Yep. And I think that's underestimated often. But coming in there is a break in the wall that is designed as an ingress-egress point for safety and for stricken cars. So if there's an accident, they can pull the car back there. It's a break between turn 1 and turn 6, and they can sort of park disabled cars, or safety can access either side of the racetrack. Street circuits, as you can imagine, concrete K-walls, concrete canyon, can often be very challenging for access for emergency response and safety vehicles. That's one of the places. Now, it happens to be as the track bends to the left before the hard turn in to the left of turn 6. Willpower, always so good at this. As you get to the brake zone, you deke to the right into that egress opening, and then brake past where the wall comes out so that you're on a straighter braking and have a more open arc into turn 6.
So you can carry more speed through the corner.
Yep. Bigger radius, less braking, more speed, open the corner up, less of a corner, ideally. Scott Dixon comes down there in practice and just like sideswipes the wall.
Yeah.
And it looked very absent-minded,
Yeah.
which is not Scott Dixon.
Not Scott.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Not most drivers at this level, or all drivers at this level, I would say. There are some brain fade moments. We've all done it. As drivers, we've all done it. But it was very strange. And in an interview afterwards, he said when he got on the brakes, he was doing the Will power line, deking that right into the overlap, the crossover there. And when he got on the brakes, it locked the rear tires and sucked him to the right. Oh. So then when the wall came out, the wall met him where he was as he was hurtling down to turn 6.
And it was a good hit. Like it broke his rim, like piece of the rim off the car.
Yep. Broke the right rear, bent the left front, and removed a section of carbon fiber on the floor. One of the things about the floor, a couple of years ago, if you hit the wall sort of side on, it would rip the right rear corner off because the floor was narrower than the width of the rear tires. Now there's a piece of the floor that comes out. Part of that's safety for side impact. But he ripped a chunk probably 3 feet long, 3 or 4 inches on top. And they just put a piece of Bondo on it, put new tires on, new wheels, squared up the toe links, and sent him back out to finish practice.
Yeah, crazy.
But that's part of the challenge of a street circuit. When you're pushing a street circuit.
Yeah, it's a concrete canyon, right?
Yep.
There's nowhere to go but into concrete.
There's nowhere to hide.
Which I think makes one of the points we're going to talk about later even more impressive. But the other thing I want to talk about is, so I was at home on Friday.
Yep.
And we were just at the beach house. So we'd moved back from the beach house and you were down there. And so I put the practice on to watch. And it was when they debuted that like visor cam or driver cam.
Yeah.
That Fox, and I texted you immediately. I was like, this driver cam is so cool. And it is so cool to get that point of view. And I think from the outside, the things that I was most like impressed with or didn't realize, I guess, being as close as I am to the racing or was, is how tight it is.
Sorry. I did put my phone on Do Not Disturb, but that alert always comes through.
Yeah. Blood sugar alerts don't care if it's on Do Not Disturb.
Right.
So how tight it was, it looks so tight in there, and Charlie's confirmed it is that tight. The amount it jostles, like and I think a lot of people were like, or there was chatter that people were like upset at how bouncy that was. And your response was, well, that's just the way it is.
Well, I got a couple of messages that's like, oh man, it feels like Jason Bourne got thrown in a washing machine, right? Yeah. The Jason Bourne movies, for those who haven't seen them, are very shot, very jerky. It adds to the drama and the intrigue and the speed. And that's exactly what it's like in the race car.
Okay.
And it is violent. It is aggressive, but it's also really fast and really narrow. And the clarity on the Fox driver's eye camera was so good.
And it's because it's not just like the driver's eye, right? They also have to go through the windscreen too.
Yeah. So it's behind the visor.
Yeah.
So it's looking through the visor and looking through the windscreen. And the different catches of glare is something that drivers deal with and don't always notice.
Yeah.
Right. And the unique piece is each driver's helmet has the drivers can choose how dark a tint and what percentage of tint you can wear. Like you choose different sunglasses that are rose colored and yellow colored, and well, some people always wear rose colored glasses, but yellow colored. My bad jokes never stop.
No.
Or you can go really dark, and that balance, the color balancing, all of just the technical aspect. And again, this is a lens that rides on the padding inside the helmet of a driver and plugs in just like they plug their radio and their ear accelerometers and their drink tube in and their air vent to get fresh air through the helmet. Bouncy, jostly, yes. But imagine what it's like actually being there. And that's what it does, is it puts the fans in the driver's cockpit and it gives the driver's impression of what is actually happening. And with the Fox Cutaway car, somebody can sit at home, put their feet up, lean back in that same position, watch that view, and get a sense of what it's like to do 180 miles an hour down Shoreline Drive with 26 other people doing the same thing.
Yeah, so cool.
Yeah.
I mean,
it was great. It's a great perspective.
We ran into Will Buxton after the race.
Correct.
And I think his enthusiasm comes through on the broadcast and how much he's having fun and how much he loves it. I didn't know he was loving it that much. So that was really cool to hear. Gosh, I forgot where I was going.
His passion for showing IndyCar to the world.
Yes. Like, I've been saying this for a long time. IndyCar is the best motorsports on the planet for the last decade, I think. And Will Buxton agrees. As a big Formula One guy, that I think, like,
and a big anchor of Netflix Drive to Survive and telling those stories is really, it's great to see his passion for IndyCar and his belief that it is the best kept secret in racing, and his job is to make it not a secret.
Yes, exactly. But I think that helmet cam shows how hard it is to be an IndyCar driver, and then how hard it is to be an IndyCar driver and the competition level that we have. I mean, there were 10, 12, 15 people that could have won this race this weekend.
Yep.
And
based
legitimately.
Strategy, like, they were all in a position to do it.
Okay, so let's go into qualifying.
Warm up. Oh, qualifying, yes.
Yeah. So, your thoughts on qualifying?
It was great. I mean, first off, Kyle Kirkwood putting a couple of tenths on everybody was unbelievably impressive.
Yeah, he's really showing himself as like a street circuit savant.
And
ooh.
I like that alliteration. And also a Long Beach pro.
Yeah, I mean,
Alexander Rossi has won twice at Long Beach in Andretti cars and going away, right? Like, just disappearing.
Yeah.
Like, at one point, I don't know, it was like 27 seconds. It was obscene how much he won by. But the Andretti Global cars are really good on street circuits. They're really good at Long Beach. Not surprising. Michael Andretti, very successful at Long Beach. Mario Andretti, Al Unser Jr., all of those drivers that were there this weekend celebrating the 50th anniversary, including Paul Tracy, who looks great after his bike crash. He said his bike he hurt his back and his shoulder, but he's back on the bike training. He's like, I had a great conversation with Paul. He's starting a new podcast as well, because all the cool kids are. And associated.
Did you just call yourself a cool kid?
I try and put myself in that club all the time, as much as I can. Along with Racer Media Company now, having completed their purchase of Mav TV. So they've got a lot of different properties going on, which is so good to see. I know Paul Fanner and those, everybody associated. It's great for the Long Beach race to see all of those different stakeholders, the media members, the drivers, former drivers. But Kyle Kirkwood and Colton Herta qualifying on the front row cemented. They had 3 cars in the top 5. Andretti Global.
Yep.
Marcus Ericsson was 5th.
Oh, okay.
And there wasn't a single Chevy in the top 5.
Yeah.
At the Acura Grand Prix of Long Beach, it always makes the manufacturer feel good when they lock out the top 5 in qualifying.
I thought Acura was Toyota.
Acura is Honda.
Oh, okay.
Lexus is Toyota.
Oh, you're right.
But they were represented there. Yeah. The other interesting thing about qualifying at the Long Beach Grand Prix is that it happens. Is it an eyeball?
No, there's like probably dog hair in my eye.
Probably.
Charlie.
I am en fuego this morning. The other thing about qualifying for the Long Beach Grand Prix is it happens earlier than most road and street circuits. A traditional road and street circuit schedule is practice Friday afternoon,
Mhm.
practice Saturday morning, qualify Saturday afternoon, warm up Sunday morning, and race Sunday midday, Sunday afternoon.
Well, you explain this. I have to go get a tissue. I'll be right back. You keep talking.
And so
No, I need a tissue.
the unique schedule from the Long Beach Grand Prix is due to the fact that the IMSA sports cars come and race as well. They start practice as early as 9 o'clock Friday morning. They do all of their practice Friday morning. IndyCar practice is Friday afternoon. IMSA qualifies Friday late afternoon, early evening. Saturday morning, IndyCar practices early. IMSA does a warm-up. IndyCar qualifies starting at 11:30 local time. And then IMSA races that afternoon. And I do want to shout out to Robert Wickens, who was paralyzed in a crash at Pocono in an IndyCar, back behind a wheel of a GT car for a Corvette in the IMSA category. Had a great race. He said, I was talking to him walking out to pit lane for warm-up on Sunday morning, I think it was. And he was saying that they got a little unlucky with some damage. They should have finished in the top 5. He went quickest in practice too, as the driver of the car using hand controls. And the fact that at Long Beach, where you very often take your one hand off the steering wheel as you go through the Long Beach hairpin, the fact that he's using hand controls and was quickest of all the GT cars is so impressive. But IndyCar qualifying is a little atypical because it's earlier in the day.
Mm-hmm.
So you get all Saturday afternoon. I talked to some crew members that went out to the beach, threw a baseball and a football on the
fun.
beach for a little bit. You get a little bit of downtime to enjoy the city of Long Beach and enjoy the West Coast sunshine.
Well, and a lot of people stay for the IMSA race.
Right. They stay and watch the race.
Because a lot of the race crew and racing people start as race fans. Right?
Absolutely.
So, yeah. Okay, so the point was it's a little earlier.
It's a little earlier. Sometimes that feeds an atypical result in qualifying because the track temp's not as hot. It's close to race time. You know, the race started at, I think green flag was roughly 1:52 yesterday. So it's similar to the end of qualifying, but the sun coming out changes the track temp, and that changes the grip and changes the performance of the cars a lot.
Yeah.
One thing that's never in question, the Andretti Global cars are fast at Long Beach. Yeah. Kyle Kirkwood knows how to wheel a race car through the streets of Long Beach.
Yeah. So who surprised you and who disappointed you in qualifying?
Ooh, Scott Dixon banged the wall. Again, kind of atypical. Shows me how hard he's having to push to keep up with Alex Palou, who qualified third.
And Scott qualified like 9th or something like that, right?
14th.
Oh,
didn't make the cut.
He didn't make
to
the
the
cut.
top 12.
Yeah, Will Power didn't make the cut.
Joseph Newgarden didn't make the cut. There were a couple of drivers and a driver that allegedly, I think this is a fun point to talk about a little bit, was on for a top 5 qualifying time to advance into the top 12 and thought he had a car good enough to get inside the top 6 was the driver of the 14 car for AJ Foyt Racing, Santino Ferrucci. But he hit the wall, so we never got to show it. Drivers are really good. We often say we were on a lap that was good enough for pole, but that wall got in the way, or there was traffic, or a yellow, or a red.
And I think that's what's important is you can be on a lap that's good enough, but if you're on a lap that's good enough and then you hit the wall, that tells me that
it wasn't good enough.
It wasn't good enough.
You have to finish the lap.
You were out of control. You have to finish the lap, and that's what makes qualifying on pole or qualifying well at some place like Long Beach so impressive because you really are pushing during qualifying. And you the car is on the razor's edge, and it's very easy to just smack a wall.
And sometimes you stack in the tires really hard. Christian Lundgaard in the second section,
he made it through
the top 12 and top 12 qualifying. There was coming to finish his last lap, or start his last lap, excuse me. Got the braking into turn 9. Turn 9 braking is really tough. There's a massive bump. Okay. You either brake before or brake after. Sometimes you can get away with braking after, but with the additional weight of the hybrid, everyone seemed to be braking before. And you saw the cars doing this massive porpoising. And as you turn into 9, it's uphill because you turn up into what's normally a parking lot.
Okay.
And there's this curb on the inside that you want to be really loaded on that left rear and unloaded on the right front. So you can drag the right front across the curb at the apex. Again, opening the radius. But if you get it wrong.
How fast are you going in turn 9?
I want to say it's top of second gear. It's probably only like 60 or 70 miles an hour.
So you have to remember all of that at 60 or 70 miles an hour.
Well, and you get on the brakes at probably 170 miles an hour.
Okay.
So you start from, as you...
Best race car drivers in the world.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And Christian got it a little wrong. Slid into the tires aggressively.
Yes.
So couple things.
Okay.
First, causes a red.
Yes.
So anyone on a lap behind him negates it.
Yeah,
they cannot finish the lap because it goes red flag, timing stops.
Which was 2 of his teammates.
Unfortunately, it hurt 2 of his teammates, Pato O'Ward and Nolan Siegel.
Yep. And Nolan had been fastest in the previous practice, so he had speed in the car, but didn't get to show it.
Right. And he had yet to face the largest challenge of the weekend.
Let's see.
And we'll talk about that during the race. Also, because he caused a red, Christian loses his 2 fastest laps and can't advance.
Yeah.
Not that with a wrecked race car, he'd be able to advance anyways. So he starts 12th. I think his teammates started 8th and 9th, somewhere in there. Yeah. And so it also leads to a long afternoon. I tell you, the crew of the number 7 Christian Lundgaard car for Arrow McLaren did not get a chance to go to the beach because not only did they have to repair the race car, they changed the race car.
Yeah. So you'll hear this on the broadcast that they had to repair the tub. And the tub there's like a safety cell that's all kind of one piece of carbon fiber, right?
Yes.
And that is the basis of the car. It's not the chassis of the car, but it's the piece that the driver sits in, and they have it all one piece.
It is the chassis.
It is the chassis.
And one of the unique things about open-wheeled racing versus, say, a stock car is that it is what's known... the engine becomes what's known as a stressed member of the chassis. So in a NASCAR, at least in previous versions, I'm not 100% sure now, you can take the engine out and the car still rolls. The frame exists, the tires, it'll still roll. In an IndyCar, you take the engine out and it's in 3 pieces. The chassis itself, the tub or the safety cell, the cockpit, all of that piece then bolts to the engine, bolts to the gearbox, the suspension all bolts to that center member of chassis.
Okay. So that safety cell, that tub, if it's cracked, if it's compromised in any way, it cannot be used. So, and as the wife of a race car driver, very grateful that IndyCar is so stringent on this. So they had the tub must have been cracked. There must have been damage to the tub because the 7 crew completely rebuilt that race car overnight.
Went to their backup chassis, put the same engine and gearbox in, so there's no engine penalty, but suspension, wiring, all of that. So he goes out and warm up in a whole new race car. And I will tell you, they're built all the same with big quotation marks.
But they're not.
But there's a little bit of a feel to it. Sometimes it's in the driver's head. But Christian went out and said, feels great, feels normal, let's do it.
Yeah.
So big work after that incident. And then Kyle Kirkwood goes out and just sticks it on pole by a couple of tenths.
And Rossi did a great job too. I was really happy to see Rossi advance. Where did he end up?
He started 8th in qualifying.
Yeah.
Right behind Marcus Armstrong, right ahead of Pato O'Ward.
Yeah.
Didn't make it into the top 6, but was another consistent weekend and continuing progress for Ed Carpenter Racing.
Yeah.
They're still figuring out how to, as a smaller team, a younger team, I would say, compete with the big 4.
They're up there. They're mixing with them, right?
Yes.
And that's fun to see.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. All right. Okay. Sunday. Sunday morning in warm-up, there was a little bit of drama.
Yeah. So Colton, hey, Gordy.
What's up, buddy?
I love you.
I love you too, Gordy. Thanks for coming in. Can we finish this and then I'll come play with you?
Yeah.
Thanks, bud.
Get you fruit snacks, yes. So Colton had what you called a brain fade moment and just kind of ran into Jacob Abel at the end of the hairpin before Jacob went into pit lane.
Yeah, so Jacob was on an in-lap, and there are a couple of technical elements, I think, that feed what happened. Firstly, for most of the weekend, the start-finish timing line is right at the exit of the hairpin, right before you turn into pit lane. Yep. So you come out of the hairpin, you accelerate almost to the top of first gear, you pass the line, set your lap time, and come into pit lane. That means that you don't have to do a whole nother lap on tires. We've talked about this before. For the race and for warm-up Sunday morning, the finish line and the timeline moves to the start-finish line, which is halfway down Shoreline Drive. So if you are coming to pit lane, you are not chasing a lap time like you are the rest of the weekend.
Yeah.
Like a lot of times the radio call down the back straight in practice and qualifying is timeline and pit. Timeline and pit. And we are laughing because our kids
we can hear our kids, and I don't know if you guys can hear them.
They're giggling, and I hope they're playing well together. But you hear that timeline and pit call. In warm-up, you hear pit this lap as you come down the front straight. You know you're not on another timeline. You're not going to finish a timed lap.
Yeah.
But you're learning about the car. You're learning about degradation as the fuel burns off, all of those sorts of things. Jacob Abel was coming into pit lane. So he was a little slower through the last section. It's pretty high risk.
Yeah,
so
there's not
saving the car, getting through. There were 2.5 hours between warm up and the race, so he wasn't pushing particularly hard. Colton Herta on a push lap had a couple of cars behind him, was figuring out what the car looked like as he pushed. There were a lot of questions around the degradation of the soft green sidewall alternate tires, and he gets a big run out of the hairpin. And Jacob Abel fades to the right. And Colton, I don't know if he didn't realize or didn't think he would be coming to pit lane, thought Jacob was blocking. I don't know. But Jacob slowed up to get into pit lane. Yeah. Jacob's a rookie.
Yep. I think his confidence is a little...
He hasn't had the greatest results to build his confidence as a rookie. Right? You come in kind of as neutral, and has the results to build that.
And he's with Tailcoin, which is a budget team. Yep. Right? They don't have the financial resources as some of the bigger teams. So they don't
have a 4-story hospitality unit like Andretti Global does.
No, but that's so cool.
It is really cool.
They just don't like, I think they're so busy trying to just like get the car ready and stuff. The little things aren't taken care of. The easy things aren't taken care of. So like something little happens and it creates this cascade and
for Jacob's a great driver, very competitive, won a lot of races in Indy Next, was, really competitive with Louis Foster for the championship all year long.
I got my own fruit snack.
Okay. I'll open them when we're done, buddy.
I can open them.
So apparently our son went.
Wait, Gordy, close the door, please. Go close the door, please.
Sorry about all the kids' disruption, but that's life with children.
That's life.
Oh my gosh, it's fruit snacks.
Fruit snacks are life.
Fruit snacks are fuel, man. And so Jacob has done a really good job, and he's completed as many laps as he could this year, building that experience base. And he's coming to pit lane, and I don't know where Colton thought he was going.
Yeah.
But hits him, spins Jacob, causes a red. Race control, I think, agreed with us because they parked Colton Herta for 5 minutes for causing that red.
Yeah.
For avoidable contact.
Yeah.
And causing a red.
Yeah.
So
I will say that also warm up was very cool.
Yeah. Not cool as in the very neat and special, but cool as in foggy and even misty. Like I put my hand out and was catching mist on my hand.
And the soft green tires, the deg coming off of them was so visible.
Yeah.
And I thought I was very concerned about how the race was going to be having to do. But I mean, it played out in the race and created a good strategy race, but
also engineers, and I talked to drivers and engineers that said when it was cooler,
yes,
they had more graining
Yes.
on the alternates than when it was warmer.
Yes.
So they had more graining in warm, and by graining, the surface rubber of the tire actually tears up.
Yeah.
And what you get are these little feathers that stand up across the tire.
Yeah.
So instead of running on a flat surface, you essentially are running on all of these ridges, and those ridges move, and it creates a massive grip loss.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's a big problem for speed and consistency.
Yes. And like there were engineers coming out just shaking their head after warm up and just going like looking at the tires and being very
concerned about what they were going to do.
Yeah, about how it was going to affect strategy. Okay, so on to
the race.
What was
start at the end or start at the beginning?
Well, I was going to ask what you thought was the most impactful or most like what most surprised you about the race?
The fact that with multiple strategies running, cars coming in and out of pit lane, and the pit exit at Long Beach is challenging.
Very challenging.
You come roaring down shoreline on a piece of racetrack that hasn't been used except for pit out.
Yep.
Right. Not a lot of laps. You have to get the car woed down on cold tires, full tanks of fuel, make a tighter turn, hit the timeline so you don't get a pit exit violation, and feed into traffic that's at the top of second gear, piling into turn one on hot tires.
And possibly trying to make a pass.
And doing all of that. Plus the concrete canyon, some of the brain fades we saw earlier in the weekend. It went 90 laps flat out.
With
no yellows. IndyCar 2025 has not had a full course yellow since lap 5, I think, by the time they got it cleaned up in St. Pete.
Yeah.
If you had told me that if I gave you $100, you would give me 10 grand if the race went green, I would not have taken that bet. And it went green the whole time. Could not believe it.
You're a bad bettor. Like $100 to win 10 grand, those odds are worth it.
Not at Long Beach.
Yeah,
That's how much the odds are stacked in the favor of a full course yellow at a street circuit like Long Beach.
Yeah, I mean,
especially with strategies.
Especially with the different strategies and everything. It's we will never be filming this podcast with our kids home again. Yeah, so there were no yellows throughout the race, which was crazy. And there's one person I really feel for that was really like put out by having no yellows. Poor Nolan Siegel got food poisoning at a sponsor dinner the night before the race and had spent the entire morning in the medical center getting fluids, trying to flush out the food poisoning, was taken directly back to the medical center afterwards to get more fluids because he was just so sick. We talked to his dad before the race and he was just like, I felt for him. Charlie got the flu before the 500 one year and made it through and made it, but you were wrecked afterwards. And I feel for Nolan. I hope he's still sleeping. I hope he's feeling better and is recovering well.
I will say the one great thing about when I was really sick in the 500 and couldn't really eat, couldn't keep food down, was 2 days after the race.
Yeah.
I ate all the breakfast. We went out for breakfast and I ate breakfast, lunch, and dinner for breakfast and then had lunch and dinner.
Yeah, because you'd driven a 500-mile race on no fuel.
Essentially, and was very, very hungry.
Yes.
So I do hope that when Nolan feels up to eating again and is recovered, that he eats whatever he wants to refill his fuel tank. Because it's so impressive. Like, he didn't have a great result. He ended up 20th at the tail end of the lead lap.
Yeah.
But also, how about that? Full green race, 20 out of 27 cars on a minute 10 lap time.
Yeah.
72nd lap on the lead lap.
Yeah.
Competitive.
Yeah,
Very competitive.
Yes. I know the soft tires, the green tires, are the bane of all drivers' existence. And right now, you really want to be able to, like, because of the rules and because you have to have at least 2 laps on each tire compound, and also in Long Beach, the time loss in pit lane was so excessive.
It is, yes.
Like, fuel-wise, drivers could have done this race on 2 stops.
So they added laps to make it even harder to do it on 2 stops. I think Scott Dixon can do it on 2 stops. I think he was probably trying to do it on 0 stops, like as good as he is on saving fuel. That's how he won last year. It was a ridiculously impressive fuel strategy.
Yeah.
But
if you had to use the softer green tire for an entire stint of looked like 20, 22 laps or something like that.
Well, to do it in 2 stops, you have to do it in 30 laps.
Okay. Yes.
30, 60, 90.
Divided by 30. Yes. So the tires just didn't hold up. I mean, I don't know who got the most out of those tires. I think by remembering it was Stingray, but like they just didn't hold up. They didn't hold up. I mean, Joseph had a brilliant call. He had a bad qualifying. He was near the back of the pack. So he stopped in on his second lap, took him off, and then he could have run hard tires till the end. But then he had a seatbelt issue and couldn't. So,
which is terrifying. When your seatbelt comes loose at 180 miles an hour on a street circuit, it is terrifying. And the fact that in a 6-point harness in an IndyCar, you ratchet them down as tight as you can go, because the harder you're held into the seat, the less you have to hold yourself in.
Yeah.
The easier it is physically. When one of those pops loose, all you're thinking about is doing laps and going fast and trying to get the result. But it is one of the most disconcerting feelings behind the wheel. Like a wheel falling off, like a steering wheel coming loose, like brakes fading.
I remember your seatbelts coming undone. I don't remember where or when. I think it was when you were through Carlin.
And it was in pit lane. It was not like, it was one of those, we were getting ready to go out. And as I grabbed the gear, the belt popped loose. I think it was in practice qualifying, but it was.
No, I remember it happened during a race once.
Maybe I blocked it from my memory. Yeah. That's how scary it was. So looking at Stingray's, he went to the alternates on his second stop, which was lap 52 from the lead.
Okay.
He ran to 64. So he ran 12 laps, which,
that's it.
Yeah, most of the drivers that stopped and got off the alternates, Joseph was the first on lap 2.
Yeah.
Lap 2. And then there were drivers as late as lap 10.
Yeah.
Going 12 laps, part of it is later in the race, there's more rubber down.
Yeah.
So that helps. But it was a very interesting strategic race.
Yeah. And then last night we were watching, and
because not only did we go to the race, we came home and rewatched it after the kids went to bed.
Yeah, because we wanted to make sure we were prepared for this podcast. And we had a client meeting in the middle of...
That is true.
Yeah, we had to go meet a client about some engagement ring, about some wedding bands in the middle of the race. So I missed part of it. But, so I would have loved to see somebody go prime, and then stop and like the last 10 laps put the alternates on, but no one did that.
So I think there were 2 cars that were prepped to do that. Stingray Rob in the 77 Juncos Hollinger racing car, and Robert Schwartzman in the Prema car. Schwartzman started 24th and ended up finishing 18th, which is a great result for Prema.
Yeah.
Right? On the lead lap, pretty good fastest lap, pretty good consistent pace. They went prime, alternate prime.
Yeah. And
shortened the alternate section in the middle. Now, part of that is to hedge against a yellow.
Yes.
Because again, you never bet against a yellow at Long Beach.
Yeah.
Hindsight's 20/20. And if you said, okay, it's going to go green the whole time, and you don't want to do your last stop first, and I'll tell you why in a second, then you would go prime, short fill,
Yeah.
alternates, high rubber track, go like heck.
Okay. So I want to explain what a short fill is.
Yes.
So because I was like, Christian Lundgaard had a great stop, and I was like, oh, they short filled him. So when you stop early,
Yes.
you have not used all the fuel in the tank.
Correct.
The longest part of a pit stop is putting the fuel in.
Correct.
Right?
So a full fill, even and this is definitely into the technical weeds, so I apologize, but the fuel system is not a pressurized pump that fills the tank. It is a big old hose, but it is gravity fed.
It's gravity fed.
And every fuel tank in pit lane for every team starts with the same amount of fuel in it at the beginning of the race.
Mhm.
So as you burn fuel down, the flow slows down because there is less fuel pushing it into the fuel tank. So the later stops are slower, and you see that a lot at the Indy 500.
Yeah.
But on average, a full 18.5 gallon fuel fill of an IndyCar takes 6.5 to 7.5 seconds.
Yeah.
Tires, the good guys can do it in 4 to 5.
Yeah.
So there's a couple second delta there.
Yeah.
The other thing, and this is a small technical detail, but also can be very important, especially at Indy, the faster you do a tire change, the sooner you drop the car back on the ground. That extra couple inches of what's called head pressure actually flows the fuel faster. Gotta say that 3 times fast into the car.
Yeah.
So the better you do on the tires, the better the fuel flows, the better your whole pit stop is.
Yes. Yes.
Now on
So-
a short fill,
On a short fill, they don't have to, if they've only used 4 or 5, 6 gallons of fuel, they only have to fill 4 or 5, 6 gallons of fuel. So the tires, the fuel is done faster than the tires, makes for a much faster pit stop. You're seeing 4 or 5 second pit stops. And that's what Christian Lundgaard did, and why he was able to come out ahead of Rosenquist or whoever it was he came, because he had a short fill.
yeah, and so that led to an incredible result. Christian Lundgaard finishing on the podium. There's no better way to reward your crew members
After a tough rebuild.
and putting a whole new chassis in place
Yeah.
from a 12th place starting finish than going out and getting them a podium.
Yep.
Because when you come back smelling a champagne and the car's covered in confetti, life is good.
Yep.
That's what those guys are there for.
Yep.
And someone else made that point. You get a little more prize money, puts a little bonus money in their pocket as well. And that is not insignificant to these crew guys.
No, not in.
Because they're all competitors just like the drivers are.
And we all like money. So
Great result for Christian Lundgaard.
yep.
Strategically, as far as and I think, okay, I want to close the loop a little bit and finish the point on Stingray and Schwartzman.
Yep.
It was Stingray Rob's second top 10, his best ever finish. He finished 9th, led a bunch of laps. He led
10 or
12 laps,
Yep.
right? You get a point for leading a lap. That all helps feed that championship standing towards the end of the year. Last year, it came down to like 3 points between making $1 million for Leader Circle and not.
Mm-hmm.
So there's all of those things matter. They had the opportunity to go prime, short fill, quick stop, 10 laps, go like heck on alternates, save some overtake, and do everything you can to just blitz the field at the end of the race. But it's risky because if everyone else has made their last stop and you're leading because you haven't done your last 40-second pit stop and you're ahead of the rest of the field, and it goes full course yellow and the pits close, you cycle to the last car on the lead lap.
Yeah.
So they weren't willing to gamble a top 10 for what could have been 5th, 6th, 7th, or 8th. And I get it. And the strategy call and the timing stand is 100% dynamic. It is 100% made in split seconds, in conversation. The other thing is, I don't know what the car was like on alternates, right? I don't know if he could have gone and raced on alternates or if they thought, okay, we'll do our last stop, go back to primes and give him a chance to go race from there.
Yeah. It just would have been so fun to see somebody on alternates in that last stint when everyone else was on primes.
And the alternates would have held on a little bit longer. The softs would have held on a
Because
little longer.
it was rubbered in
The
better.
track was rubbered in. There, I mean, you've done 80 laps with
Yeah.
27 cars. That's a lot of rubber down.
Well, and there was no sweeping because there was
There's
no yellow.
no sweeping, so there's a lot of grip. And even as the track temp came up, because the sun came out and, you know, Southern California Sunday warmed up nicely, there's still more grip. More grip on the track means the tires last a little bit longer and you can go faster.
Yeah.
But also, the alternate to primary wasn't that much faster. It's not like you put them on and were 3 seconds a lap faster and then you fell off a cliff. They were just a little bit quicker.
Yeah.
But it would have been a lot of fun to see some.
To see.
And hindsight's 2020. You can look back and say it's going to go green the whole time. That's what you should have done for the best total time.
Yeah.
But overall, great result for Robert Schwartzman, the Prema team, and especially to see Stingray Rob, you know, get out of the car and his wife. He got married in the off season. See his wife Molly come up and give him a big hug for a top 10, a 9th, and see Ricardo smiling was just so cool.
And I think Santino did an awesome job too.
Yeah, let's talk about going from last to almost a top 10.
He went from last to 11th. I don't know if it was strategy or what did it.
Yes,
but
it was strategy and having a good car, taking advantage of clear track, and going fast and going forward.
Lovely. Because let's not forget, the way you win this race, any race, is being the shortest amount of time between green and checkered. So it doesn't matter where you are in line or how many cars you pass on track. It matters how that time delta.
So I want to point out something, actually. Yeah. Kyle Kirkwood finished the race in 1 hour, 45 minutes, and 51 seconds, and some change. Santino Ferrucci finished the same 90 laps in 1 hour, 46 minutes, 22 seconds, and some change. So that is 31 seconds. So, okay, you'd say, oh man, you finished 31 seconds behind the leader? I would be very interested, and I don't have the data here right now, but I'd be very interested on lap 1, how far Santino was behind. Part of the challenge of Long Beach is because the hairpin is a 27 to 32 mile an hour corner, the last place car is in turn 10, not even the last corner when it goes green.
Yeah.
And so he probably started the race 10 to 15 seconds behind Kyle Kirkwood. So in total,
you think that's it? I think he probably could have started the race 20 seconds.
20 seconds is a third of a lap. It's not quite that.
But
I will look up the data and I will put it in the show notes because it is so interesting to me that over the total race time distance with no yellows, right? Because yellows dilate that time back down to 0.
Yeah.
Right? You're back packed up. This went green the whole time. So it's a true reference of ultimate race pace. And there's a chance that Kyle Kirkwood was only 10 seconds ahead of Santino Ferrucci.
For total race pace. Over 90 laps.
Yep.
And how long's the lap?
Minute 10, 70 seconds.
Well, how long is the racetrack?
1.968 miles. Just under 2 miles.
So that's 180 miles.
Yep.
Right? Just shy of 180 miles.
Yep.
He was 30 seconds behind the leader.
And if you say, okay, he was, let's be generous here, 15 seconds behind at the start of lap 1.
Yeah.
So he was only 16 seconds slower than Kyle Kirkwood.
Over about 200 miles.
Oh, yeah. Then that 16 seconds would have put him 4th. So if he started with Kyle Kirkwood, he told us, well, his team told us that he had a 4th place car. That data is pretty close.
Yeah.
So, and it's different, right? Like traffic and pit stops and you're not,
who you're racing with.
And also Kyle Kirkwood, he only won by 2.6 seconds. Before turn 9, he was up by 5 seconds. He cruised across the line, waving to the fans. Was right, won by 2.5 seconds. So there were a couple of seconds he gave away right at the end. I will say that. But also a great recovery for Santino Ferrucci. I know they want top 10s. They want top 5s. They want to win this year.
Yeah.
But also that's how you do it. You keep driving forward. He made a mistake in qualifying. He owned it. and he got it done on Sunday.
Yeah. So, cute little story. So we saw Larry with his Larry Foy
of AJ
with
Foyt
his
Racing.
family right before the race. And Larry Jr. was there, who turned 6, and he
You asked him.
I asked him, I was like, well, what do you want for your birthday? And he goes, well, I don't know. I said, what about a trophy? And he got the biggest smile on his face. And you don't get to keep the trophy for biggest mover of the race, but you get a trophy for the biggest mover of the race.
And we saw him after the race, and he looked like he was on cloud 9 because he got a trophy.
So I'm glad Larry Jr. got a trophy for his birthday.
Absolutely. Anything else? There were a lot of fueling issues, pit lane issues.
Yeah.
Now, Long Beach pit lane is challenging, and any yellow flag pit stops are ripe for chaos. We didn't see any yellow flag pit stops, but we saw a lot of challenges. Seatbelts coming loose on Joseph Newgarden, we talked about. Fuel not going in the car for certain people. Long equipment failures. I don't quite know why, but it seems to be more prevalent this year. And usually it's race 1, right?
Yeah.
Stuff sits around all winter. You see some of these issues. But equipment-wise, we've seen some fueling issues. I don't think it's associated with hybrids. I don't know if it's associated with additional maintenance on the hybrid units. And so other maintenance issues are falling behind. But we've seen certain drivers have consistent, and teams having consistent issues.
Yeah.
And
it's so frustrating when, the driver does everything they're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Like, they have a good qualifying, they're running good lap times, they don't crash the car, and then something silly like belts, or not that belts are silly, but fueling issues or something wrecks a race.
Yeah.
And I know that it's a lot of times the other way, right? The team does everything to prepare the car is fast, and the driver shunts it.
And that's why it's a team sport.
Yes.
You win as a team, you lose as a team. It's everything, and it's almost harder on the crew guys because they know they've done their job and they just missed one little thing that cost them a race, and they feel more responsibility than the driver ever does.
All right, we have to wrap this up. We have a very patient child knocking on our door to come in. Any last thoughts?
What a great weekend.
Yep.
Long Beach is the second biggest race that any driver wants to win every year. The 50th was incredible. Great attendance numbers. Kyle Kirkwood.
Flawless.
What an incredible job. Saturday, Sunday.
Yep.
Got it done.
Yep.
Great racing. Love the strategy. Cannot wait to see who has momentum on the road course at
Barber.
The start of the month of May. It's May 3rd.
Yep.
Barber Motorsports Park. If you're going, spend an afternoon at the museum.
Yep.
If you're not, last weekend was the Masters. Tune into the Augusta of Motorsports at Barber Motorsports Park.
Take your allergy pills. The pollen's going to be bad. But yeah, Charlie, I don't know if Charlie's going to Barber or not, but we'll see. And
if not, we'll be watching.
I'll be home. Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Bye. Okay, come in, honey.